Hi, this is Sue Greenwald here with Awakened Stories. I'm here today with Deanna Carr from the Mystical Moonlight. Hey, Deanna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. So today's surprise topic is called The Great Reset, the Tartarian Mud Flood. So I'm not sure if you've ever even heard about this, Deanna.
I have not.
You haven't. Oh, so this
No.
is going to be fun. Okay, so there's quite a bit of speculation. So basically, what's happening is in excavation, they're finding cities, buildings, pyramids, whatever it might be, buried under, deep mud in most of the major cities in America. And also, the philosophy is that these beautiful old buildings that we see haven't been built, say, 100 or 150 years ago, that they're much older and that they were there long ago.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the bottom line. Evidence is coming forward where more and more artifacts are being dug up that had technology. So basically, it's called the Great Reset, that basically mud had flooded all of our cities, basically wiped out the people. The buildings that remain that are still usable, they've repaved the cities and they've built modern buildings and they've modified the buildings, but we're not told about that history. So is that something you would agree with?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Okay. So I'm again not sorry that you didn't know about it, but there's other viewers that probably didn't know about it either. But about how long ago would you say this mud flood, the most recent like Earth reset happened? About how many years ago would you say?
Probably about 1,000 years ago.
1,000 years ago? Okay.
Now, for the resets,
Yep.
I mean, we kind of talk about this in the game zone. I just
Yep.
didn't have a name for it, where we talk about, after, the civilization is kind of done, what they do with the city afterwards. And that is what they do is they'll come in and they'll wipe it out.
Yeah.
Now, the reason they use mud is because it hardens. So it will take the people out. It's going to hide the bodies, the bones, the buildings, and then it will start to build up to that next level so they can, start building on top of it. And you don't really know. Unless you start digging down, you wouldn't even know that there was a level underneath of you.
Right. Right.
So it is definitely what they've been using for a very long time to hide previous civilizations.
Right.
Um, yeah, they are going to continue this. That way they can hide the civilization as soon as they extend it on.
Okay. So basically, we know that the civilization has been reset here on Earth multiple times. They've used floods, they've used, in this case, mud. They've done all sorts of things. And what that does is it not only wipes away the people, the technology, whatever is happening, it wipes away the history of the earth and society and all of our knowledge. So
Yes.
by keeping us ignorant, we're more likely to be, kept in, we'll call it a slave mentality, a
Hmm.
scarcity mentality. We don't know where we came from. We don't know what technology we had. So we're more pliable to the wishes of those that control us. Do you agree with
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay. Um, all right. So how about for this? We're going to talk about the most recent mud flood. Okay, just the one that happened most recently. How deep would you say the mud was? And I guess that would depend on the city itself. But
It depends on the city and how much they're trying to wipe out.
ah,
Um, so most of the time they're gonna go up at least 6 to 7 feet
okay,
because they want to wipe out most of it. Because once they start to put in the mud, what's gonna happen is the buildings and the structures should start to collapse, depending on what time frame we're looking at. Now, not every structure is built like that, so they'll be adding a lot more. So more of the stone buildings, they're going to have to add a lot more mud to hide everything. So the base one, when we talk about, let's say like huts and that kind of thing, it'd be 6 to 7 feet of mud that they would add in. Other ones, it's going to be a lot.
okay. Yeah,
Like I don't know. I don't even know how high it would be. It'd be like 32 feet, I guess.
yeah. We're seeing like these giant old stone cathedrals around, these really
Hmm.
fancy buildings that they look like really magnificent buildings. Well, and they've got like their windows at the basement level are kind of covered up. And so
Hmm.
that's what we call street level, but when you go down, there's more structure to the building.
Yeah.
So a lot of those buildings have survived.
Yeah, and some of them, what they'll do is they'll add the mud in, and let's say it's a big tower, and it's just it would be way too much just to add to cover it up and to bury it. So what they'll do is they will add the mud in, let it harden, dry, and all that. Then they'll add the street on, and then they'll go into the building and make that the top floor, and then they'll go usually to the basement, close that off so it looks like that is the basement, whereas reality that could be like the 14th level or
Yep.
something. So
Yep.
it's a way for them to continue using the building, but for them to do it in a logistic way where they're still hiding what they want,
Right.
but they can still continue using it and they don't have to use as much mud to just destroy it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I did talk with King Smarty about this the other day, and I wanted to kind of talk about, what are some of his answers and compare because, there's multiple ways all of this could have happened, but
Mhm.
how was the mud created?
All right. So the mud was created when they first had the realization of how are they going to get to the next round. So this is going back to the original game zone. So it's okay, we want to end this one. They've, gone on to the next level. We're going on to our next level. How do we kind of destroy their work? So when we bring the next rounds in, they don't have the starting phases. They have to learn it from the basis.
Yep.
So that's how the idea started of how do we kind of destroy it. Mud is an easier substance to use. One, because it's liquid, so it's going to fill in the gaps easy. It's not going to be, as strenuous as holding up rocks and boulders and everything like that. So they can easily spray it and put it into the surface versus larger rocks. They do have advanced technology, so they're able to contain a lot of mud within a certain amount of space. That way, they can use it wherever they need it.
Okay. So did they like have, we'll call it spaceship type vehicles where they
Yes.
beamed over a city and just, like pointed their hoses or whatever it would be? Is that
Yep.
how it worked? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it would fill up. So it's kind of like a mixture of, their technology with basics.
Okay. How did the bad guys survive?
Most of them knew.
Okay. Now, so we're going to call them the bad guys. So were they reptilians?
A lot of them were, yes.
Okay. So they came in and they sprayed like basically our part of the earth with mud. A lot of our society and civilization, of course, perished. Their technology, their knowledge, the animals, the trees, everything. So
Hmm.
we're starting from scratch again,
Yes.
for the jillionth time, right?
Yeah.
There were people that survived. How did they survive?
Hiding.
Okay. So did they go up like in the mountains, in the forest, like
Some
cave?
of them went into the mountains. Most of them, a lot of them actually went into inner earth.
Okay.
And then they just had to find ways that they could coexist in their area. And
Okay.
then most of them were able to hide until there was another civilization that they can come back into. Because we don't really talk about that time difference either. How long
Okay.
does it take for them to mud, and how long does it take for them to bring the civilization?
Right.
We always talk about this, what started first, the chicken or the egg? But there was civilization here and they just brought it in. They
Right.
were able to alter the memories so people would wake up thinking, they've already established, they've started. So it's not this crazy concept of where am I? Like this is, bonkers. I just woke up and I'm, an adult. So the starting phase was just bringing people in, wiping their memory, and then they think this is their reality.
Oh, interesting. So where did they get these people from?
Different planets.
Oh, they brought them here.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we talk about this in the game zone.
Yeah.
Not They bring in different species to see what they can do, how they can survive here, what elements can they endure, can they get to ascension, can they do all these crazy things, along with, doing different types of physical tests. Can we change them? Can we change their DNA structure? Can we take out parts? Can they survive? Can we change their years that they live? All of these that they alter along the way.
Okay, okay. It's unfortunate kind of that you haven't seen anything about this, but there are videos out there that show basically they're called Cabbage Patch children, okay?
Mhm,
But basically they were breeding babies in incubators, okay?
mhm.
And that's how they repopulated. Would you agree that that is a true thing that happened?
There are ones that are Cabbage Patch Kids, yes.
Yes.
Um, but for the most part, they would also bring in different species from different planets.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mhm,
So these we're going to call them orphans, okay, these Cabbage Patch Kids.
mhm.
Obviously, they don't know how to survive. They don't know how society worked. They don't know the history. They just do what they're told, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
so of course then they have children eventually and of course the intelligence level is low and they have to figure things out basically kind of from scratch, I think. Does that
yes.
sound accurate?
Yeah, so if you don't really know anything, you're not going to be able to establish, where you want to be, what you're supposed to do, how are you supposed to grow as a person. It's something that's new, and you're also starting at a lower educational level, and building up is going to
Yeah,
be more challenging.
yeah,
So if you start at this lower level, you're going to start creating this society that is also on a lower level.
right, right. And so they're not educated and they do what they're told. They're kind of like, we'll call them slaves.
Hmm.
And they just go about their material world. They don't really know about a spiritual world.
Yes.
Okay. So in the old videos and photos I've seen, it looks like there were a lot of, we'll call them inventions. In fact, there was a truck that looks like the modern day Tesla truck, but
Yeah.
it was back then. So we're using a lot of the inventions that were developed back in that time frame. But there was no plastic. It looks like they just used metal and maybe wood or maybe leather or something. The
Yeah.
cities look really big and magnificent, and the streets are clean. They're not full of garbage or whatever. It looks actually pretty cool for being back then. So, yeah, interesting. So you say that it happened because that society, that civilization, they just wanted to wipe them out and start again to do some more tests. And they had evolved to a certain point, and they were like, "We're done with them."
Yeah. So we kind of talk about ascension a little bit. We
Okay.
have people that have leveled up. They're going to their next level, but a
Yeah.
lot of people on that lower level of energy are going to be stuck and they do want to wipe them
Yeah.
out.
Okay. Okay. Now, I had asked King Spody about this the other day. Up in Rochester, New York, a guy was digging a pool and he dug up a woolly mammoth.
Hmm.
And it was a big deal. This was maybe 20 plus years ago, or maybe 30. Um, and so what I surmised from that is because it was so up near the surface, is that woolly mammoths were around during that time period with living alongside humans. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely not, it wasn't that long ago. Now, I don't know when they said the last woolly mammoth was. I mean, I don't remember that part of science, but I know that it was a lot more recent than we've been told.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's a lot more than we know about. The reason I'm saying this is because I saw some rings and they're using woolly mammoth tusk in the rings, like
Yeah.
for wedding rings and stuff. And for somebody to just, put that in rings, there has to be a lot of source for that,
In,
which is kind
in
of crazy. Where do you find that?
in
But
Russia, they're finding tons and tons and tons and
mhm,
tons of dead ones in this river.
yeah.
Tons of them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely more recent than we've been let on, just like all the other creatures.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we've been seeing within our own society is all these animals that are just going extinct.
Yeah.
Um, One, I don't really think that it's necessarily extinct. I do think that they are taking them and, let's say hoarding them elsewhere. But like the last few, they're hoarding them. But for the most part, they have died. But where do they go? I mean, you don't see all these carcasses of these extinct. There's so many extinct species since humans have gotten here. So I just find it interesting on that aspect, but it's just like the woolly mammoth. Like, I don't really think it was as long ago as we were being told.
Yeah, that's what I guess I'm getting at. And so then that would lead me to say, well, then carbon dating, which we were taught is a scientific method of
Oh,
dating
that's total
something.
BS.
It's just like making numbers up, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that,
Yeah.
whoever made it up, I mean, it's kind of like writing an artist statement. Like you could sell anything if you know how to BS it the right way. And part of math, part of science is somebody just BSing it so it goes with their hypothesis, right? So they're just finding as much data to back up their hypothesis. Not saying it's correct, not saying you know exactly where they got their data from, but it's enough so that way you would believe their data.
Right, right. So basically everything we've been taught is incorrect.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Or what they do is they give you so many different variations of the truth, you don't know which one's right. It's another way of control. So
Yeah.
that way you tell me one thing, I'm going to argue, no, it's this, because we both have different beliefs because we've both been taught different ways.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.